email. So going further, we will be seeing a little. I will be seeing all the drivers in a little elaborate way. I told you about Firefox, Chrome, and iDriver, but the question arises: of do all these drivers have different functions in them? What if I have to say click on a link using Firefox driver and a Chrome driver and iDriver? Is there a different command to click on a link using these drivers? Okay, the answer is actually no. There is not. There is no different link or something. The thing is, you need to understand the concept of interfaces in Java. Right? To understand the drivers in detail, you need to understand the concept of interfaces in Java. So now I will explain you the concept of interfaces. Hold on. Okay. Suppose I have a class. I have a class called say a very simple class like Nokia. Alright, and I have a class called as iPhone. Now both of them are phones, nothing else. Right? Nokia and iPhone both are phones. Right? And in iPhone you can have functions like public void call and say public void play game. These are the functions in iPhone, right? And in Nokia class, Nokia.java, you can have separate subset of functions like public void again call and public void play game. But the call and play game functions of Nokia and iPhone are different. The name of the functions are same. I made the classes in such a way that the name is same, but the features can be different. In call function of iPhone, I can write iPhone calling, and in the Nokia function of in the call function of Nokia, I can write Nokia calling. Right? I'm sorry. Okay. So now tomorrow Nokia can decide it can give any other name to this call function. Alright. So to bring a kind of you can say structure to the whole application or to the whole scenario, right? We would like that we give the name of the functions as same, so that if tomorrow a third phone is also introduced, say a third phone called Samsung.java is introduced, it should also have the same name call inside it. That's why we use the concept of interfaces. What we do is that, hold on, I tell you, we make an interface. I will make an interface known as phone. Okay, I'll make an interface known as phone. In this, I will write a function public void call. What is an interface? You will come to know in some time. And public void play game. Interface tells you the features. It is just like when you're going to read a book, right, in the preface of the book you see all the chapters which are there in the book. You don't know how these chapters they behave and what all is there inside the chapters or the lessons, fine, but you know through the just by looking at the preface of the book that what are the contents of the book. Right. Similarly, interfaces like that, it will tell you what a phone is supposed to do, whether it is any kind of phone. Alright, and what all my phones will do out here is Nokia phone will write that public class Nokia implements phone. When you write that, okay, when you write that Nokia is implementing the phone, hold on. It's supposed to implement all the features of the phone. It is supposed to implement call as well as play game function, which is defined inside the phone interface. If Nokia doesn't do that, if it defines some other function for calling, then I get an error. Okay, so it's mandatory for a class which is implementing the interface to implement all the features of the interface. Similarly, I can write the iPhone class implements phone. Right. So if iPhone tomorrow decides not to implement the play game, it will throw an error. It's fine. You are implementing the phone interface. Please, it's mandatory. You go and implement the function play game of phone. So call and play game functions, whatever are the functions of the phone class, they become mandatory to be implemented in the classes which are implementing the phone interface. Tomorrow if a new class comes up, suppose a new class is coming up known as Samsung, and Samsung class also implements the phone interface, then it is mandatory for the Samsung class to make functions called as call and play game. So this is what an interface does. It gives a kind of structure to your complete application. Yeah, Vikram, tell me, any question?
Yeah, hi Ashish. Actually, you mean to say like when you create an interface, all the classes, I mean all the functions should be incorporated in the other Java file, other class file. Is it something so?
Yes.
Say like call and a play game, it's mandate to use all the. We can't use only call or something like selected features something. Say like phone.java has many methods. I mean these things. So can't we use only selected one among them?
No, we can't use selected ones. You have to implement all the functions. Okay.
Well, I guess there is a way out. Ashish, thing is you can define all the, I mean, all the method names defined in the interface, but don't call that method into your main function.
No, if you delete any one of the functions, you will get an error. I'm not
No, I
talking
mean,
about
define it. I'm just saying define it there, but don't call it into your main function. So that way you're not using it.
I can't get you. Can you repeat that?
Well, I was saying that I mean we can define both the methods which are there in the interface. The thing is, in our class, when we write our main class, we don't call these two methods if we don't want to use it.
Yeah, that's your choice, but the rule says that if you are implementing an interface, you have to implement the function.
Yeah.
If you don't want to implement it, then the concept of abstract classes and all, they come into the play, which I'm not discussing right now. Or you can decide to keep your function blank as well in case you don't need to use it, but you will have to put it inside the class. Okay, it is mandatory. Alright. Now the same thing is there in Selenium as well. In Selenium, everything is inbuilt inside the API. You just need to understand the structure. Okay, if you go to the documentation of Selenium, if you go to seleniumhq.org and if you go to the download page and you select the Java doc, fine. Out here in Java docs on the left hand panel, whatever is there in italics, whatever is written in italics is an interface, right? So if you look at it carefully, for example, a very simple example which everybody will understand, mouse. Mouse is an interface. It represents the mouse operations, click, context, click, mouse. These are the functions in the interface. And these are the implementing classes. Event file mouse, HTML unit mouse. So this is how you read documentation. Fine. Now everybody has heard about the word WebDriver. What is WebDriver? Technically, this is WebDriver. It is an interface. Technically, WebDriver is an interface, and all are the these are the classes which are implementing the interface. Android driver, Android WebDriver, Chrome driver, event firing, Firefox, HTML unit. So all these are the implementing classes to the interface WebDriver. Okay, so whatever features are defined in the WebDriver interface, all the functions will be there in these implementing classes. Okay, just like all the features which were there in the phone interface, call and play game, were there in all the three phone classes, Samsung, Nokia, iPhone. Similarly, this is the WebDriver interface. If Chrome driver, Firefox driver, iDriver, Safari driver, Android driver, all these functions are implementing this interface, then the functions will be there. For example, in WebDriver interface, there is a function called as close, which closes the current window. So close function will be there in Firefox, Chrome, as well as all the drivers. Similarly, a function like get title, which gets the title of the page, so it will be there in all the browsers. So that is how they have arranged the whole thing. Tomorrow, if suppose one more driver comes up for some XYZ browser, right, then you don't have to worry. The same functions which are there in the WebDriver interface will be applicable to that driver. Are you able to get me what is the importance of interface? It gives a kind of structure to the application. Otherwise, Firefox driver could have its own implementation, Safari driver could have its own implementation, Android driver would have its own implementation, and you would have to learn about each and every driver separately. But no, that's not the case. Only the names they are different, but each and every driver has got the same set of functions which are defined inside the WebDriver interface. You got my point, right? Okay. Now everybody must have heard the word Selenium, right? Obviously, Selenium RC, right? If you go into the Selenium RC Java docs, we are looking at the Selenium WebDriver Java docs. Okay, Selenium RC is the older version. If you go to the Selenium RC Java docs, first of all, in RC just these many classes were there. You see the difference between RC and WebDriver. Somebody asked me the difference in the first class. Okay, No, this is Srinivas. Question is being asked is this thing known as dynamic method dispatch? No, Srinivas, that is something very different. Okay. Okay. Another question is being asked: what if any of the class has its own function? Yes, we can define that, Shaila. I'll come over to that in some time. Right. We are taking just a minute. There's a question being asked. Let me understand that. Taking Yeah, in if a class is implementing an interface, then you can call any of the functions as per your convenience. It's not like I'll call them, I'll show it to you in some time. I'll show you, right? Okay. Now this is the WebDriver interface. You see, WebDriver API. It's so big, and this is actually Selenium API, which is the older one, Selenium RC. In Selenium RC, the older API, there used to be one interface, there is one interface known as Selenium. This is the older version of Selenium, Selenium RC. Okay, and there was just one class implementing it, default Selenium, and in this one interface they had put everything, right? But in WebDriver, things are very advanced. Right? You have got different driver classes. There is one interface known as WebDriver, and all the classes implement the interface. Right? Okay. Now, what is the advantage of this thing? What is the advantage of, what are the more advantages of using a single interface and all the classes implementing the interface? I'll come over to that now. Right. I'll create a new class known as Selenium example. Now that day we had seen that in order to work with Firefox, you can create the object of Firefox driver class. You can write Firefox driver dr equals to new Firefox driver. Okay, and hold on, let me introduce Selenium jar files in this project. Okay, if you have to use Firefox, you'll have to create the object of Firefox driver. If you have to use Chrome, you need to create the object of Chrome driver. You also need to set the exe of Chrome. I'm not doing that right now. What I need to show you is that this is the object of Firefox driver and Chrome driver. Majority of the features which are there in Firefox driver, these functions, right? For example, there is a function known as get, or there is a function known as find element. This function finds an element on the page by its ID, XPath, and all those things. I'll talk about those. Right? All those functions are also there in Chrome driver. Find element is also there in Chrome driver. Why? Because both these functions, they implement the same interface. Just like if I create the object of, hold on, if I create the object of Nokia class, Nokia n equals to new Nokia, and I create the object of Samsung s equals to new Samsung. If I write n dot call and s dot call, Call function is associated with both of them, but this call is for Nokia and this call is for Samsung. Similarly, same functions are there in Firefox driver, Chrome driver, and all the drivers. Right now, suppose question is being asked is, do the import function for Firefox come by default or we need to write it? These imports, if I remove the Firefox driver import, I will get an error. If you need to import this, you need to move your mouse over the error and import. Alright. Or the shortcut is you simply press Ctrl Shift and O of your keyboard. O for orange. Ctrl Shift O. Everything would be imported. Right. Now I create the object of Nokia and Samsung here, and I call Nokia.call, Samsung.call. So the call functions for Nokia and Samsung will be there, right? Now what all functions can I call in Nokia? I can write Nokia.call, Nokia.playgame, then I write Samsung.playgame. Another question is being asked is, how does different from inheritance? Can I have a class extended? Look, inheritance is like class extending another class. Okay, but inside the API of Selenium, understand the fact you have got interfaces. Right? This is also kind of inheritance. You inherit the properties of the interface, but the only thing is you have to actually implement all the features of the interface in the class. Okay. In Selenium, we have got interfaces. We have the web driver interface. That's why I am teaching you this interface concept over here. Web driver is not a class; it is an interface. Okay. So you create the object of Nokia, you create the object of Samsung. With the object of Nokia, you can call the call function play game. With Samsung, you can again call play game. Right. If hold on, I'll just comment these two lines. I don't want the browsers to open. If I run this prints Nokia calling. Hold on, just a minute. Nokia playing game and Samsung. Inside Samsung, I'll write function names are same, but the implementation it can be different. Fine. If I go to Selenium example and now run this, obviously I'll get this output: Nokia calling, Nokia playing game, Samsung calling, Samsung playing game. Alright. Now suppose now Samsung comes up with a feature which is only its own feature. It's not there in any other phone. It can do that. Yes. The rule is, if a class is implementing a interface, it has to implement all the functions of the interface. But it can also implement its own functions apart from those functions. Right? So you can write over here public, say, hold on, public void hold on, my Eclipse, it is hanged. My mouse is hanged. 1 minute. It is not moving. Hold on. Yeah, it's okay now. Fine. So say switch on Bluetooth. Suppose this is a feature which is only present in Samsung, right? So you can do that. So if you go to Selenium example, So Samsung can also call switch on Bluetooth. So if you run this, Bluetooth will be called. Okay, this was the question being asked by somebody that can a class implement its own? Yes, you can do. Firefox driver class will inherit all the features from WebDriver. Plus, it can have its own functions as well. Although practically it doesn't have it. It has got one or two features of its own, but we hardly use them. Everything comes from the WebDriver interface. Practically everything comes from the WebDriver interface. Okay. Now, moving further, there is a special way to write. Now, till now we have seen how to create the object. You name the class name, object reference equals to new class name. Then class name, object reference equals to new class. Now there is a different way as well. You write phone P equals to new Samsung. So what am I doing? I am writing the interface I equals to new class which is implementing the interface. This is the structure of creation of object over here. This is different than this. Phone out here is actually an interface. Writing interface name P equals to new phone Samsung, which is implementing the interface, or new Nokia, or new iPhone. I can write like this. But what is the difference? What is the difference between writing Samsung S equals to new Samsung and phone P equals to new phone, or writing web driver equals to new Firefox driver? Web driver is the interface and Firefox driver is the class implementing interface. What is the difference between this line Firefox driver fd equals to new Firefox driver and this line? Okay. If I am writing this line, then I can call all the functions which are in Samsung and are coming from the phone interface, but I cannot call the functions which are owned by Samsung. Like I can call p dot play game, but I cannot write p dot switch on Bluetooth. This will give me an error. Although switch on Bluetooth is the function inside the Samsung class, but if I am writing the interface reference P equals to new class which is implementing the interface, then I cannot call the functions which are inside the class and are the property of that class only. Right? This is the difference. This way, if I write driver equals to new Firefox driver, then I can call all those features which are coming from WebDriver interface to the Firefox driver class, not those features which are owned by Firefox driver class, like which are only in Firefox driver. If you are not able to understand, then please let me know. Any questions? Do you have any questions? Anybody? Anybody? This is the concept of interfaces. It comes under inheritance. The question being asked is, what is this concept known as? This is the concept of interface, right? Okay, so if I am writing the interface name equals to new class which is implementing the interface, then I can call the name functions which are coming from the interface into the class. Now, why this is important? Why this is important? This is important because somebody was asking me a question yesterday that how do I run my scripts on multiple browsers? This will help over there. Suppose I have a class and in this class I write like this. Suppose Firefox driver equals to new Firefox driver, and then I write driver dot get I'm sorry, to some URL, and after going to that URL you perform some operations. Okay, now suppose this complete script is very big and tomorrow the requirement comes up, you need to execute it with Chrome. Then will you go and change the driver? Will you change the code? No, you don't do that, right? You don't change the code. Just